Leading off our discussion tonight is Senator Adam Schiff, Democrat of California. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and a former chair of the House Intelligence Committee. Senator Schiff, thank you very much for joining us tonight. There's such a mirror there with Donald Trump accusing Iran of creating a situation where they don't know who's in charge. And then you hear Donald Trump's Secretary of State disagreeing with Donald Trump about the latest so-called offer from Iran.
That's exactly right. And it's so ironic, given the criticism they're making of the Iranian regime, that they're divided. When you hear within the Trump administration all these divisions, in that exchange, I think Rubio is exactly right. It would be an intolerable resolution if Iran gets to control the strait, they get to charge a toll. And bear in mind, that was not the case before this war. So at this point, it seems like the administration is hoping just to get back to the status quo ante before this war, that is, Iran not able to charge tolls. But, considering all of the expense, all of the tragic loss of service members, to have a result, to strive for a result that is basically what it was before the war, just shows you how little thought went into this war to begin with, how little understanding of why we're at war or how this was going to end. But it's not just the Iranians that are struggling to come up with a coherent theory. It is certainly the administration, let alone a coherent strategy to end the conflict.
And it doesn't seem like there's even an aspiration on the Trump side to achieve a deal nearly as good as what President Obama and John Kerry achieved. Have you heard any particulars about what the administration would insist they must have in a deal?
Well, I've seen some reporting that they want Iran to forswear their enrichment program for some period of time, and there's a debate about how long that would be. But what I found most, almost comedic about this is Trump trying to distinguish what he was trying to negotiate with the Iranians from what Obama did with the JCPOA, in saying something along the lines of, oh, no, this is very different because now we're getting an ironclad promise from Iran that they won't develop the bomb. Oh, okay, well, if Iran's willing to make a promise now, I guess that is very different. You can see the president is looking for anything that he can declare victory with and somehow persuade the country that it's better than the agreement he tore up. But again, I think the principal challenge here is the president doesn't have the patience for diplomacy. He doesn't have the patience for war either. He just wants it to be over. Look, we all want it to be over. But unless you go through the kind of intensive negotiations that stretch on for weeks and months, it's going to be very hard to strike any kind of meaningful deal with Iran. When you talk to experts and they hear, Trump saying that, well, we negotiated for 20 hours in Islamabad as if that's some big deal. Negotiations go on for 20 weeks routinely on something that difficult or more. So the idea that, well, we put in 20 hours and now we don't want to go back because it's too far to go and too much work, they just don't have the kind of strategic patience that the Iranians do, and that's not going to lead to a good result.
Well, that's it, Senator. What happens with the other side in a negotiation like this, an international negotiation, when you hear one side saying it's too much work, it's too much travel?
Well, the Iranians have to be very heartened to hear those kind of comments. They have nothing if not staying power. And I think from the regime perspective, the United States threw its worst at Iran in terms of all the bombing and all the rest. And nevertheless, they retain the potential to close the strait when they choose to do so. The regime remains very much in power, even perhaps more hardline. And in the future, any inhibition they might have had about cracking down on their people because the U.S. might intervene is no longer a credible threat. So there's a very real risk here that Iran emerges empowered from this war. And yes, it's lost a lot of its military infrastructure that can be rebuilt, but nevertheless, they feel they've survived, that they've taken the worst, and now they have carte blanche to repress their population even further, or let alone close the strait. So, very difficult. This is why it's best to avoid wars of choice because you don't know how they're going to turn out. The things are unpredictable, and we're seeing the consequence of these unpredictable repercussions.
Senator Adam Schiff, thank you very much for starting off our coverage tonight.
Thanks, Lawrence.